Put some treble in it. Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Mr. Logical. Into 5 sports reports as ordered. We are back. The NBA Finals have started. The road team has won. We have a series, folks. So now Denver's going to win it in 3 instead of 2. Why everybody out here gambling? What's up with the uptick in gambling? What's going on in the sports world? It's okay for me to gamble. Not that I do that, but these dudes can't do that.
I was gambling yesterday.
Minneapolis. Are there new cooks for hire? Because it sounds like Dalvin might be on his way out. And then the SEC. We know that you're the toughest conference. But that doesn't mean that you get to feast on the butterscotch crimpets. So, Mr. Logical, what it do?
Yo, just another episode here. Like I said, appreciate everybody following, subscribing, rating us, giving us feedback. Some people send it directly to my phone, so I'm with it. I think we have some good topics tonight, man. I think we have topics that people probably should talk more about. But I think, somebody got to be a trailblazer, right?
Yeah, I mean, LeBron to Dallas.
Come on, man. It's like people just like, there's stuff we can actually talk about.
I saw today, Kyrie to Phoenix.
I mean, there's tangible conversations you can have around sports. Like, you can have a conversation. Granted, it's just, like I said, it's just a couple of clips. But the Kyle Trask, Baker Mayfield clip when they were throwing routes to the tight end, it was like you're throwing routes to air and they were overthrowing them. I know it. You don't, sometimes you miss, but it was like it looked bad when you're throwing routes against air. And then I saw, what's the young boy name out of Kentucky?
Will Levis.
He did a little drill.
He couldn't even do it.
And he missed the whole target.
Yeah.
That's probably tough. Like, I can't front, and it's probably his early practice. It's tough, but you can have a conversation about, is Tennessee making mistakes drafting quarterbacks 2 years in a row? Like, that's a real conversation versus some made up conversation about where Kyrie's going to get traded to.
I remember it above the rim. They kept showing the same highlight of Kyle because he was probably missing all the other shots. So they just kept looping the joint. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, Tennessee, get it together.
Yeah, Ray was going to be out of there.
So, Mr. Logical, you went on the record a couple of weeks ago, or actually it was last week, I guess, let everybody know that the Denver Nuggets was going to pull off this sweep. So do we got a series now?
I'm gonna say.
Oh, I gotta say yes. You look like you ain't want to say
it. I gotta say yes, simply because Miami didn't look like a team. They don't look like a team that should win a game in the NBA Finals. Like they don't have big depth. Who is their key rebounder? They have a bunch of guys who shoot a lot of threes, but those guys don't do much else. It's not like that whole 3-and-D guy. Like, they don't have Max Strus. He doesn't shoot threes and defend on the wing. Duncan Robinson isn't your spot up shooter and also, 2 steals a game kind of guy.
Yeah, Bam Adebayo.
Bam Adebayo isn't your traditional shot blocker and your 20-point center. Jimmy Butler isn't your quintessential superstar. So nothing about the makeup of the team on surface level says that they are even an NBA Finals team, but yet they came out and they just came out of like gangbusters in that fourth quarter. Duncan Robinson had 8 points in a row, and he took it to the cup. He had 2-3. I think he had a 3, a foul, 3-point play, and another layup in like 3 possessions in a row. I don't think we've seen him miss those 2 wide open threes in game 6. Mm-hmm. You would think that would like kind of bring his confidence down, but it didn't. He doesn't, like, the moment just doesn't look too big for anybody wearing a Heat jersey or a Heat polo on the sideline. And that in of itself, I got to say, listen, I'm all about telling people that I'm always right in conversation, but I love being wrong because that gives me a new path to think. I think we might have like a real series that might be either a tough 6 for Denver because they are the better team, or it could be it could legitimately go 7.
Okay, Confucius.
I mean, granted, yes, Miami, and Mike is gonna get into the stats because that's like his thing. I'm
But
like,
if Denver if Denver
I like to talk
loses,
the concepts.
if Denver loses, is it a failure?
Oh God. I mean, I hate this somebody's season to failure when you, like I said, you've played over 100 games in the NBA season. You're number one seed. Your best player was second or third MVP voting, depends on how the points worked out, and he was leading MVP candidate. Your coach is kind of risen to the upper echelon of coaches. They have a pretty solid home court advantage. I can't say the season's a failure, but it would look, if they go down 2-1, it could be tough. And then the conversations are going to go sideways. Like, oh, you guys had Jokic in the Hall of Fame last week. Now what do you got? Oh, this shows that MB was a true MVP. I just want the series to be good at this point. Because at first I thought it was going to be a sweep. But watching game 2, I was like, I think Miami can do what they did in game 2 1 or 2 more times in this
Mhm.
series.
So first of all, y'all, I apologize in advance. Bear with me. When y'all see my eyes, you're gonna know what I'm talking about. I thought it was allergies, but it might be something else. But I got a rescue search going on. Where is Michael Porter Jr.? 3 for 17 from 3 in these 2 NBA final games. Where is KCP's brain? I watched this guy foul 2 3-point shooters in the same quarter, and it happened to be the fourth quarter, and they lost by 3.
Did you see his face on the Kyle Lowry one?
Yes. What is he?
And then they
Yeah.
show the replay. It's like, dog, you jumped into his feet. He didn't extend his feet at all.
Yeah. So you remember last week I said something and you was like, nah. I told you Miami's shooting this historical crazy clip from 3, and you were like, they're not shooting that good. So they shot 17 for 35 in game 2. and,
49.5%.
and I was listening to a show. I believe it might have been Debatable with Dominique Foxworth. And they said that this season in the playoffs, Miami's shooting a better percentage than from 3 than the Warriors did the 2 years they had Durant. So maybe not necessarily best of all time or anything, but still pretty damn good. This was Denver's first home loss since March 30th. So for those thinking at home, that's before the playoffs. So this was a big deal, but the 2-5 part of me is like, they had to lose at some point at home. They weren't just going to like win for 3 straight months at home without taking an L anywhere. Denver still hasn't shot.
Yeah, that's just the way you think.
Yeah, that's
You
just the way I
think
think. That's
you
just the
just
way I
think
think.
that way.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
logic behind it.
Yeah.
That's just
Denver still had a chance at the buzzer to tie it and go to overtime.
He had a good look. It's
So
a
there's
tough look, but he had a good look.
So there's no reason for Denver to be, I guess, doubting themselves or feeling like, why did we let this team back in? I don't think we're there yet. Mike Malone appropriately called them out for their lack of effort. Because remember, I said that in game 1 where you were talking about, oh, it's down to 10. Miami's making a run. And I said something along the lines of like, no, Denver's just playing around right now. They kind of did that same thing where they went up 15. And then they just, I don't know if they started smelling themselves or, they were just waiting to go to Miami. But I don't want to not give credit to Miami, but I feel like Denver, there were a couple of plays, even Jokic, where Miami was coming to the basket and Jokic just kind of sidestepped, out of the way.
Like I said, I watched this game like from tip to buzzer, and the thing that I noticed was that when you bring up Michael Porter Jr. and we brought up a stat that I saw the other day that he's played in 231 games and in 87 he doesn't have an assist, he has to do something different because he has such an advantage at 6'9", 6'10". He doesn't make it tough. He doesn't make it tough on the defense. It's like I'm not comparing him to Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons would have an advantage on anyone guarding him because he was running the point. He was on the floor to be the point. So Philly had Embiid and Tobias Harris and like other big bodies on the floor. So you had to have a guy out there to guard Ben that could move. So more likely that guy was 6'7". 6'6" and 6'7". I'm like, okay, you have an advantage on him. You got to take advantage of it. Michael Porter Jr. is getting open. He's getting open looks, and he's firing every single one of them off. So I think Miami's like, well, let's not run at him because he's not going to pass it. Let's just turn and get the rebound. So he doesn't, like, same thing with Aaron Gordon. I don't think Aaron Gordon threatens Miami unless he's going towards the hoop. So they got to get those two guys to just do a couple of different things because that way, because Miami was keying on the pick and roll with Jokic and Murray, and they just were jumping out of Murray, and they put Jimmy Butler on him, and he couldn't get a good shot off. Or maybe sometimes when you're not feeling it, you don't force it. Like, remember Tatum's 51-point game against Philly? He was doing he had the terrible game in Philly before, then he had all the points, and then they won it. And then that game 7, he just was feeling it. He was shooting the ball to the ocean. He wasn't taking those shots in game 7 versus Miami because he wasn't feeling the same way. I felt like Murray was playing that same way. Like he was playing in the first few quarters of game 2 against the Lakers. But then he had the floater go through and then the free throws go through, and then he was automatic. He was on the bench a long time until the 4th. I think he put him back in because I was looking. I think he was on the bench until about 8.5 minutes left, maybe even 8. So he missed a good chunk of the 4th. So by the time he got into the game, they were already down, 8 or 9 for the most part. Like Miami got up and they were just basically battling from 8. They get 8-5, then it's back up to 9, and then KCP with the fouls would get it back up to 8.
Well, you know what's funny
Jamal Murray sat on the bench a little too long in the 4th.
Well, you know what's funny is we talked about Boston, and you said something along the lines of Tatum needs to take this many shots and Brown needs to take this many shots. Jamal Murray only took 15 shots, and he hit 7 of them. So, it wasn't as if he went 3 for 15 or something. He just didn't take enough shots because he couldn't, because the defense.
But I think he was 3 for 11.
Oh, yeah, he definitely was that, yeah.
Before he got back in the 4th.
Right,
like I said, he didn't get back in until 8 minutes.
Right.
But they had Miami was already in their groove.
Right.
When he came back in. So he would have to shoot himself into a groove and Miami out of one. And then people were following 3-point shooters and it never worked out.
And then Aaron Gordon, he took 7 shots, made 5 of them. Maybe he needs to shoot more, Porter less at this point. Until Porter shows a consistency to knock down shots. Jimmy Butler only went 7 for 19. So, it's not as if Jimmy has had that explosion yet either. So Miami's got that one at least potentially in the tuck, waiting for him to have one of his, Himmy Butler moments, old Himothy, So Denver was up 15 in this game. And then when the 4th quarter started, to your point, the first 3 minutes and 17 seconds of the 4th quarter, Miami went on a 17-5 run, which included us learning that Duncan Robinson has never made a mean mug in his life. I don't know what that was. But this is what Mike Malone said, going back to my original point about effort. This was his quote. Quote, "Let's talk about effort. I mean, this is the NBA Finals, and we're talking about effort. That's a huge concern of mine. You guys probably thought I was just making up some storyline after game 1 when I said we didn't play well. We didn't play well. This is not the preseason. This is not the regular season. This is the NBA Finals," end quote. So that coach is trying to get through to his team. You haven't accomplished anything yet. You're out here peacocking and hot dogging while you got this team over here grinding that is not as talented as you. But they know that Miami knows that they have to hit maximum effort. Even if the numbers don't bear it out, even if the shooting numbers don't look good, Miami has to grind. They have to get low defense, creating offense, those type of things. And Denver has to be able and willing to match that intensity.
So what I saw, because Jeff Van Gundy was killing Denver for their pick and roll, like pick and pop defense and the slip screens. It was like, if you have a shooter setting a pick at the 3-point line and he's slipping it, more than likely the ball's going to him. It's like he's not setting the screen, so he's setting it so he can slip and get open. And it was one play, Michael Porter Jr. This is after Mike Malone had called 2 timeouts in the first quarter, I believe. And then they came out of the timeouts a few minutes later. Michael Porter Jr. was like on the baseline, help defense, and the ball got kicked out to Strus, and he was wide open. No, Gabe Vincent, he's wide open. And then Jeff Van Gundy was like, Michael Malone's going to have a conversation with Michael Porter Jr. because he was nowhere near his guy. He was like, just stay with your guy. Because what happened was they let Strus got like 4 open looks. He hit 3 out of his first 4. But all those 4 were like considered wide open. They're like, mathematically, it's like there's no defender within 5 feet when you catch the ball, like you're technically wide open. Or some nuanced stat like that. His first 4 threes were wide open, and he knocked down 3 of them after he went over 10 in game 1. So if you give a shooter who was struggling 4 wide open looks, and like I said, Malone called 2 timeouts because Gabe Vincent got 2 open looks. Yeah. And I don't know how you don't have the effort. Maybe it's just a matter of, because when I would play basketball for fun, to me, I'm like, I'm not a good scorer, I'm not a good shooter. I just was an effort. Like I just would just play hard. And I like playing defense because I think playing good defense on someone frustrates them more and frustrates the team more, especially if the guy is always holding the ball. And I'm like, cool, if you're the point guard, I want to guard you because you want to beat me off the dribble no matter what your skill level is. Mine is. If I can defend you, get a steal, get an easy layup, or bad shot, rebound, run out, I think guys like Aaron Gordon, KCP, Michael Porter, they need those kind of runouts because Jokic is going to get 22 to 25 shots if he so desire. Yep. Jamal Murray can get 22 shots and he can spend a bunch of time on the bench and still come in and get 22 shots. Bruce Brown's not getting 22 shots. The other Brown, who spells his name like Braun, he's not getting that many shots. Those guys have to get their hands in the passing lane, get out on the runs. Because I noticed that Jokic will pass the ball to a guy like Jeff Green or Aaron Gordon just to get them a shot, to get them in the game, a la what like LeBron does or what like Jordan would do early, what Kobe would do. Like Phil Jackson, like, listen, the first 3 quarters, work the offense, 4th quarter is yours. But Jokic was going into his 4th quarter bag early. And you could tell he was kind of like only 4, and he got 3 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that stat the whole game because I heard him say a number and I thought it was up to 6 because I was like cleaning my room at the same time. So I thought he said 6. I'm like, okay, cool. So he's getting the ball around. But then his score popped up and he's still scoring points, but he still only had 3 assists going into the 4th. And I think he got the 3 in the first.
And Gabe Vincent 4 for 6 from 3, by the way. So, lineups, we talked last week and I said, hey, you got to throw Kevin and Love in there.
Somebody's watching the podcast, man. I'm telling you, it's out there.
But that was the thing, because he's like, if nothing else, he's another big body, not weight wise, but, height wise, at least, where somebody like Gordon has to look over him to shoot and all that. So it provides a different vantage point for the shot. But also, Kevin Love pulled out that defense on Steph Curry in the finals. Michael Porter had a possession where he just couldn't get past Kevin Love. You can't teach that. Like Kevin Love is an old.
Is that when he was on the baseline?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was when he made the move twice, I was like, you made that same move from the same
He
spot.
looked like me on 2K when the computer pushes me with their elbow and they don't
And you're
call
like
it.
running in place.
Yeah, like
It's like,
so Kevin Love and when Kevin Love is in that lineup, so the starting lineup that Miami used in Game 2 has a record of 11-4 this season because of course Kevin Love came there after the trade deadline, buyout, and all that stuff like that. So 11-4 is the record when that lineup starts the game. Duncan Robinson with all 10 points of his in the fourth quarter. Miami, Game 1, we talked about only 2 foul shots attempted. Game 2, 18 for 20. They got to get to the line because they got to slow down Denver's momentum, and they can put pressure on Denver's defense. So Jimmy Butler, I just don't know how to explain him. Like I want to think that he's a great player,
I
but
think Jimmy Butler is I think Jimmy Butler is just the leader of. Granted, I know he was drafted, but I think he's the scrappy leader of the undrafted group,
yeah,
where he is not your five
he's just
star
a gamer.
marquee. He's just a gamer,
Yeah,
and he'll go
chicks don't even know the
one.
name of his band.
Yeah, he'll go 1 for 10 through the first 3 quarters, and then somehow get you 13 points in the fourth,
Yeah,
and it might be 8 free throws. You're like, how did this guy get to the line? He's like, okay, all right, I'm gonna turn it on. And I think that's the makeup of the team. It's just if you had a guy like, okay, Miami, if you put a guy like, let me think, who's a guy? Like if you had Dame Lillard and not Jimmy Butler, I don't know if they get this far, even though I think Dame can get you the points. It's just something about the way Jimmy plays with that group.
right.
Like he doesn't take 30 shots. You know what I mean? Like I think he just makes sure that whatever the coaches want, and I think the coaching staff is just you got to give them A pluses across the board. It just seems like the coaching staff, the players, and the scheme just fit. I just thought that just logically, because that's how I think, Denver was going to stick to their script and not succumb to whatever pressure is because their script gets them inside points and outside points from two players that play well together. It's not like when we're talking about the Lakers, people are like, oh, if LeBron can do this and AD can do this. Well, they don't work together to get their points. Whereas
Mhm.
Jamal Murray and Jokic tend to work together to get their points and get everybody involved. But like we said before, do you just let Jokic drop 50 and keep everybody else down? Well, with that, that's when you need Jamal Murray to come back with like 28. So with these
Mhm.
games where Jokic is getting 40, like dog, you got to get 28 because if he's getting 41, 8, 9 rebounds, but only 3 or 4 assists, if he's not getting assists to you, then you have to like run off the pick and roll. You have to like you got to get points to where Jimmy Butler has to stay near you because if Jokic is cooking and you're cooking, now you can get Michael Porter Jr. more open shots. Now you can get that lob pass over the back to Aaron Gordon because the defense has to adjust to you. But like I said, him not getting back in the game, I was literally watching. I was like, why is he not on the floor?
Mhm. So
You
so
know,
what do you
and then start the fourth quarter.
what are you expecting tomorrow night?
I think they'll do a lot. I think they'll deliberately go through Jokic as the playmaker, not the scorer, for probably the whole first quarter. I think the whole first quarter, they're gonna just make sure Jokic is getting the someone setting screens on the baseline and getting Jeff Green easy layups, getting Aaron Gordon lobs, getting KCP open shots, getting Michael Porter Jr. Maybe you get him to the rim. Maybe I don't know. Like you do something different to get him so
Just
he can
pull up
see
at
the
the
ball
free throw
go.
line.
Yeah, just get him either getting fouled, going to the hoop, seeing the ball going through, and then go back out and hit your three. But I think they're gonna work Jokic as a true point guard because I don't want to say he was tired because I don't like I said I don't think these guys get tired because like I said they're supreme athletes. But you can tell he was working Like you could tell he was doing like mini sprints to
Mm-hmm.
get a lot of his points. And I think it was like a relief because some of his shots, like the way he shoots, and Jeff Van Gundy said it was like he's like his shots hit the rim so soft
Mm-hmm.
that they just go in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably like the relief when you're running the floor and you get this little awkward floater and it goes in. But then a few times it was like that floater didn't come down. It went like he airballed over the rim or it'd be too hard. And you can see like he couldn't get to the rebound because he was putting a lot of energy to get to that
Mm-hmm.
shot. But when it would go in, he would get to come back on defense, relax. But when he missed, now he's battling Bam for the rebound and battling Kevin Love for the rebound, and he couldn't get to him. And
Mm-hmm.
everything like him going to the hoop that much isn't like what they do best.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no one else around the hoop because everyone else is kind of waiting on the kick out pass. So I think they'll go through him at the top of the key, making that bounce pass that gets KCP a layup, that gets Aaron Gordon a lob, that gets Jamal Murray a 15-foot jumper, and they'll start the game off. They'll get 28 to 30 points, 32 points in the first quarter and set the tone
Yeah,
that way.
I think Denver wins tomorrow. I think they're going to respond to Coach Michael Malone, not Mike Malone, Michael Malone. He don't like the Mike thing,
Yeah.
but I think they're going to respond to him because like Phil Jackson used to do the whole "I'm going to call my team out," but he did it kind of passively aggressively, where he could be talking about any player, but whoever he was talking about knew he was talking to him. But Malone is talking to the whole team. And we saw the videos of Joker yelling at them during the Lakers series and all this. So I think that they're going to respond because I mean they've been in this position as a 1 seed all year long. So like they are the better team. Now Miami is going to be electric tomorrow night. Can Bam keep up what he's been doing? I have my doubts about that. Not
He
because he
gets
can't.
so many moving screen fouls. He's got to
I
cut.
know,
Those are just cheap fouls. He just
but
gives them away.
not that he can't do it skill wise. He just doesn't. Like he just has games. Him and Jimmy Butler, they just have these games where they shoot 10 shots or they're just kind of there. Like they're not imposing their will on the game. So I think that tomorrow, and we got to see if Tyler Hero's going to play. That's going to be the other thing, and if
Yeah,
he
but I
does,
don't know. I don't know. I don't know what Tyler Hero gives you.
well, that's what I was about to say. Does he mess up the flow that they've created? We still haven't seen Caleb Martin. He had a big three the other night, but we haven't seen him have the type of game that he had in the Eastern Conference Finals yet either.
Got to
So
pull his socks down. Socks too high.
so I think we might be in that territory of starting to come back to the main, and the main lets us believe that Denver is the better team. So I'm going with Denver tomorrow night. I don't think it's going to be a blowout or anything. I think Miami will grind. Miami will keep it close, but I think eventually Denver is just going to be too much.
Yeah, like I said, I just think working it through Jokic because I felt like there was a few, like more than a few possessions where in game one and just different games that we watched Jokic, his decision to like when they put Zeller on him, he was like backing him down every time. And it was almost like Miami was like, all right, here's this lamb we're gonna give you. We're gonna put Zeller on you. You're gonna look at it and say, "Oh, I can take this dude to the block." And then they were running two people at him off the weak side
Right.
to help defense, and then other guys weren't knocking down shots. So the
Yeah.
more that they do that, so I think Jokic instead of doing that, if they put Zeller on him, he's just going to stay at the top of the key.
And I
I
can't
think he's going to just
imagine.
stay in frame and be like, all right, cool. You're going to stay out here with me. You can't do anything with me if I decide to shoot this three. You can't do anything with me if I decide to take it to the cup. But you really can't do anything if I get this bounce pass to
And
KCP right off your right
yeah, I
shoulder.
was just about to say KCP. Like, I can't imagine he's going to play that bad again. I'm not even mentioning his bad shooting because that goes without saying. But defensively is where he made his name. So he can't play defense as badly as he did in game two.
He
You know,
might need to see some shots go through. Like your
maybe.
energy is different. Like because if you're out there like, hey, I'm supposed to hit shots, and you're not hitting shots. If you go 4 for 9 from three, it's okay that you give up a couple of dumb fouls.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily 3-point fouls, but like you
Yeah,
foul Bam out of Bayou on a turnaround, or you
right.
get a loose ball foul, or you knock the ball out of bounds. But you gave us 12 points on offense. You're getting good shots. You're stretching their defense. But if you're out there going fucking 3 for 12, then you can't be out there just giving out free points on the other end.
Yeah, I'm looking for Bruce Brown tomorrow too. I'm looking for Bruce Brown to step up, bring some energy off the bench to match Miami. I think he can be one of those X factors that turns a game just off of the vibes and energy that he brings to the floor.
I think Lana Rhodes lives in Miami.
Mm,
I know he's into that.
mm.
You know, if she don't live there, I know some other ones probably live down there. Maybe he needs to have him come visit him at the hotel.
Maybe, but apparently I need to visit these hotels and these casinos and place some bets because the sports world has been going crazy over the last year or two with gambling scandals, people getting suspended. I don't understand the reason why this is happening now, but what you think?
All right, I'm about to get my Shannon Sharp on. My mom used to tell me, she's like, "Boy, if you're gonna steal, still big, still at least 3 million." She would tell me anytime we watch a movie with a crime scene in it, she's like, "If you're gonna steal, baby, still big, still at least 3 million." So these guys out here making 50 and $100 bets and $25 bets. Calvin Ridley got suspended all of the 2022-2023 season, and the reports came out. They never really, because we'll get into why the NFL isn't really keen on mentioning all the information they get about these gambling investigations. But according to preliminary reports, he only gambled about $1,500. I'm just like, then what's the point? Like, if you're doing it for fun, then bet with your friend that's at the house with you. Yo, dog, like me and my dad, when we watch games sometimes, we'll have like some ones and be like, all right, I bet you in the next possession, the Commanders score. We throw $1 on the floor. So if it's the Commanders versus the Panthers and we don't really care about that game, we'll just
and
throw money on the floor.
whoever betting on the Commander just don't like money.
I mean, a field goal counts. It's just a score, or we're like, all right, I bet there's gonna be a turnover. Me and my son will do like me and my son will stack some quarters up. I'm like, all right, I bet the next play is gonna be a pass. He's like, all right, I think it's gonna be a run. We'll make the bet. Little stuff like that, and that's fun. But I'm not risking my 3.4. Even if your contract's only a few $1,000,000, and after taxes you get about 1.2 million of that, whatever the case may be, you're risking $1,000,000 to
uh,
make $25 and $50 bets. Like in the case of Isaiah Rogers, and the same thing with Calvin Ridley. He probably would have gotten some money in the offseason, nice little contract, if he would have gotten his mental health together with the Falcons when he's taking his break, and then come back. He would have been It would have been Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Calvin Ridley. It'd have been like the new Julio combination with the young. Well, Mario would have been a quarterback that you maybe move on to Ritter. You could have done some things, but instead you miss out on whole seasons. And it's like I'm not understanding like the other players. Now the coach for Alabama, he was doing like he does what like you would do with a friend. Like if you had a friend that worked at Foot Locker, yo, dog, just put me some J's to the side. I'll be there. Or you got a friend that work at McDonald's. Like, yo, let me get them 20 nuggets for $1. You ask your friends to kind of hook you up. So his friend was like, yo, I'm betting on y'all to lose. He's like, all right, cool. I'm gonna put in a reliever as a starter. But I think he made a healthy bet based on like, so he went for the concept of baby still 3 million. I don't think it's right. But if you're gonna do it, and it's a legal bet, like his friend made a legal bet. There's no requirement for his friend to take the coach. The coach doesn't have to take the player out. He made a bet,
mhm.
and but it's gonna happen. We talked about Vegas a lot in this podcast. It's a lot of people who like to gamble,
Well,
and
according
access
to
casinos.
according to Paul Meyerberg of USA Today, one of the things that raised the flag on that was a bet that was placed in Ohio, because Ohio prohibits anonymous wagers over $1,000. So that raised the flag when the $1,000 bet came in.
See, if you're gonna do it, you gotta if you're gonna do it, because people are gonna bet, they're gonna gamble. As a player, I just don't understand why you are, especially a professional player, and you're getting paid. Like, I don't understand the reason that you would bet a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
money, but a college player that's not getting any playing time, I'm not justifying or rationalizing the bet. But if you're like, I'm just on the team and you're not setting anything up, you're not faking an injury so as a starter so you don't play and the
Mm-hmm.
third string guy has to play. But it's hard to investigate. Um, but the beauty part of most investigations is that somebody's always willing to cut a deal, so these
Mm-hmm.
investigations won't be tough. And as far as like Alabama with the baseball coach, you're gonna probably have to examine other people's jobs, like the
Well,
AD and these other upper echelon positions
mm-hmm.
at your university. The Iowa State
Yeah, that's what I
scandal.
was about to ask you. Yep, about the corn lands.
You when it's that rampant, it's not a secret.
Mm-hmm.
If it's if you got a couple of people doing their dirt on the low, then it's good. Like this comedian Ali Sadiq, he was talking about how he used to be a street pharmaceutical sales rep, and he had some money. He was living with his dad, and then he was doing this thing, and he stopped. But he's like, I had $15,000 left over, but I had to move back in with my mom. But he was like, I can't just walk around with new stuff. He was like, you can't walk in the house with a bag of candy when you don't have a job. Your mom like, how you get that candy? So he was like, I had to go get a job at Kroger's. He called it K. Rogers, but I had to get a job at Kroger's to make it look like this money I was getting at Kroger is what I was spending, what I was buying this stuff with.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have multiple players who are suddenly maybe spending more money, or groups of players that weren't hanging out often, like the offensive lineman and the special teams cornerback, now all of a sudden they're always together all the time. And you're hearing stuff because when young people get money, they do young people money stuff. They go to the bar and they buy everybody shots. They rent houses and throw bigger parties. They rent and or buy cars. They do things that say, "Look at me, I have this money." So
Mm-hmm.
if you have that many players, when you only have about 80 players on scholarship, so if you have a third of your players, 20 or 30 of your players, just all of a sudden doing different things with money, you had to ignore it. Because college students aren't that like ingenious. Like I have a 19-year-old son, well, he's about to be 19, and a 21-year-old. I don't know if they would be good enough to hide if they were getting some loose money from around here, just because they don't think that people notice that stuff because
Mm-hmm.
they're 19, 20, 21 years old. They don't think about, okay, now I gotta hide it, I gotta hide it, I gotta hide it more. They're like, oh no, I just want to post it to social media. That's not the same thing. So the coaches, AD, someone had to pay attention to it, someone had to see it. So if that's the case, some heads are gonna roll, or no one's gonna talk about it
I mean, it's
and no
college
one to
baseball.
care.
Yeah, it's college baseball. You know,
College
so
baseball, but the Iowa State thing was baseball, football, and basketball.
mm-hmm.
So they had a little bit of more of a spread of an influence.
Yeah. So speaking of baseball and basketball, of course, Pete Rose, the all-time major league hits leader, has been banned for the last 34 years for betting and gambling. He said he bet on his own team to win every day because he believed in them. And, I guess maybe he won more than he lost, but this is the all-time hits leader that's probably never going to see the Hall of Fame. Like regardless of
The
what he did
home
on the
run king and the hits leader aren't in the Hall of Fame.
art in the Hall
Baseball's
of
great.
Fame. Yeah, baseball is crazy. But then basketball wise, a couple of weeks ago, there was this, or a couple of months ago, there was this story about Michael Beasley and Eric Bledsoe. Now, when I saw Michael Beasley in the news, I just knew it was something marijuana related, But Not so much. So apparently, over in China, in Yao Ming's league at that, in the CBA, him and Eric Bledsoe played for the Shanghai Sharks, and they had a best of three series against the Jiangsu Dragnose. Hopefully, I said that right. They won game one of the best of three, and then they benched their starters for game two. This game two that would have took them to the next round of the playoffs, which would have became a best of five. So then of course they lost game two, and the league said enough. You're disqualified. They disqualified them for the whole season and fined both teams 5 million yen.
Were they just trying to sell more tickets?
I don't know what they were trying to do, but it's just I don't know. Like, look, I've never considered myself to be a criminal. But if I was going to commit crime and do some point shaving, I'm damn sure not going to do it in China. Like we saw.
That's not the place to commit crime.
Yeah, we saw them holding on to LeVar's boy. Yeah, exactly.
We had to get Donald Trump to get him out.
And then with Yao Ming being the president of the league, it's just like, how disrespectful can you be? I guess but I don't know why. Like I want to know why. I want to examine the why. Why is this happening? Because we just had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, counting Isaiah Rodgers, at least 6 NFL players that just recently got suspended.
And the crazy thing is, like, when the Calvin Ridley suspension was announced, it was in the middle of the Deshaun Watson investigation.
Right.
And it was like, or right after, like, right on the tail end of it, where he had his decision. And everyone was like, so one guy gets single-digit number of games for potential sexual assault or sexual misconduct or just deviant behavior, and another guy gets 17 off the rip for gambling
for FanDuel.
So just from that aspect of it, like, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I'm throw another little anecdote in here. I had an airman when I was stationed at Hill. We had they called us all in at 4:00 in the morning in December. He had just gotten to the base November, December time frame. So like the middle of December, they called us all in. We had to do drug urinalysis. So everyone gets called in. It's probably like my squadron is probably like 350 people, which is a lot for an Air Force squadron. We get called in. Everyone's in the hangar. You go to the bathroom. People watch you pee in a cup. You seal it up. Do all your initials. It went sent off to see if people, tested for drugs. 5 months later, he's getting kicked out for marijuana. So I'm escorting him around the base. And I'm like, so did you, I'm like, ask him, like, I don't want to get to your business, but like, did you get caught in that when we all got called in December? He was like, no, I went home on leave and then I smoked. I'm like, you went home on leave in January? He goes, yeah. I'm like, so you were here in December. You saw this is your first base. We called all of you in, even though they were assigned to like a different training like section. Like, no, they were in FTAC. So like, no, you're coming in too. So they all came in, did their drug urinalysis test in December, and then he went home. And I talked to my section chief. Like, they say either he smoked on his way to the airport coming back from leave, or he smoked the entire time he was home in Pennsylvania. And he was like, yeah, I smoked at home. And I was like, are you stupid? And I like sometimes, it just comes out. I'm like, are you dumb? Like, did you not see this is how we get down? Like, this is your first month at your new
like
base.
You saw that it could happen.
You saw how like, I mean, people, so we got the call at like 3:30, 4:00. There was already people set up in the hangar. Senior leadership was set up in the hangar. Our chief, our commander, all our top ranking officials were in the hangar. And then the drug demand reduction people, that's the urinalysis, they had set up in our conference room. So it was like 15 more people in there. So I'm like, they called in all these people to do it before 3 a.m. They were already set up. We had coolers of water everywhere. So it was like, when these NFL players, you saw what they did to Calvin Ridley in the midst of what happened with Deshaun Watson. So you saw the NFL drew their lines in the sand on how they feel about these different types of infractions. And tampering, you lose a draft pick, but you don't lose any players. A little fine. Uh, the Deshaun Watson case was abnormal, but Houston got a haul in that trade. Calvin really got suspended for a year. So all these guys who are getting suspended after that is like, you already know they're into this. They already see it, and there's no way to really hide it. So why are you putting yourself in that position? Like I said, for $50 bets.
Yeah, it can't be money because I mean these dudes are professional athletes. They're well paid. So that's why I'm stuck. Well, the college kids not so much, but but for the pros, I'm like, you're already getting millions of dollars. What are you doing? Like, why?
Even like I think Isaiah Rodgers' contract is like a couple of years, $3.4 million. And I'm not scoffing at the $3.4 million, but it's like if you were making $12,000 bets that were paying you 3 to 1, 4 to 1, and you're winning 50 grand off these bets.
Like my man Mattress Mac or something.
Yeah, I get it. Like, Mayweather, Floyd go in there, he'll drop $1 million on a fight or whatever.
On
I
itself.
can get that. Yeah. But I'm like, I'm not why are you betting $50 on your own team? It just I don't know. It just and then on top of that, like y'all need to stop going to Twitter and making your apologies before the investigation's through. Because you, even as an NFL player, you are still afforded an awarded due
Hustling
process.
backwards. What part of the game is that?
Just if they announce your name and somebody's getting suspended, don't go to Twitter and apologize to the fans. The fans don't give a shit. They don't know who you are. They don't give a damn you gamble. They don't care if you gave up a touchdown on purpose. No one cares. They don't care.
Hey,
So
that's
don't
my
go out
hey,
there and ruin, because you ruin your appeal.
that's my dude
You
on
ruin
Madden,
your
though,
appeal
man.
when you admit guilt in the middle of the investigation.
That's
Like,
my that's my
stop
dude.
admitting guilt.
Yeah.
Stay off of Twitter.
Well,
Stop going there trying to plead to the public. The
so
public
what I'm
doesn't
trying to
care.
figure out, do you have any background? Because we talked about how Calvin Ridley got suspended for the season. But then some of these players that just came out in April with the scandal only got 6 games.
Well, a couple of these guys got suspended for the whole season, but they were like fourth string guys. Jameson Williams was a top draft pick. He got 6 games. And per like the report that I had read, he was logged into his gambling app used
At the
at the
facility.
facility. So I
Yeah.
imagine he was using their Wi-Fi or something to, like, anytime you walk into a building that's got Wi-Fi, you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna connect my phone to the Wi-Fi. I'm trying to stream YouTube or whatever else case,
Yeah.
connect to the
Get on some
Wi-Fi.
OnlyFans or something.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, you want to take advantage of, you want to get the cold tub, you want to get the massage and all this other stuff at the facility, get some food. Might as well abuse the Wi-Fi too. You gotta keep in mind, I don't know how much money he got paid, but he's like, maybe he doesn't have files at his crib in Dearborn, Michigan. But so he was at the facility, and you got to look at talent versus tolerance. He's a young player with talent. We want to keep him around. The other guys probably could have gotten the same 6 games, but I think a couple might have been betting on the team.
So do you think they potentially move him Ridley style, or you think he's young enough and coming into the
He's
league?
young. He's young enough. He's fast enough. Like I said, it's the whole talent versus tolerance. Jimmy Johnson said, "What do you do if a four-string running back falls asleep in a meeting? Like, you cut him. What if Emmitt Smith falls asleep? You nudge him. Like,
Yeah.
that's just,
Yeah, that's what I always say. Steve Kerr come
that's
late to practice. He running laps. Michael Jordan come late to practice. I'm checking to see if anything wrong with his car. Are the
yeah.
kids okay? How's Juanita?
Was it traffic? Do you need a helicopter on your way home? So like that's the difference. So when you have those kind of players, but like I said, what blows my mind is the benefit just like Jordan would gamble. He was notorious. Like I said, I was watching The Last Dance, and he was notorious for gambling with his teammates on the bus and the planes. We remember the Gilbert Arenas story. That was a rumor has it that was a gambling related debt. So gambling is a part of the sport. DraftKings, FanDuel, they pay the NFL like $200 million to be associated with the league. So the league can act as if they're oblivious to
Right.
what's going on because you support it. Like we brought up in our pre-meeting, NFL players can't have individual sponsorships with alcohol companies because the image of the league, but yet Budweiser sponsors
And
every
Anheuser
Super
Busch.
Bowl. Anheuser-Busch. So the league can have a deal. Like, remember that Jay-Z video, Showed Me What You Got, when they introduced the new beer?
Yeah.
Because he brokered the deal, but you can't be a quarterback and get a beer deal.
Remember when DOD was paying the military to salute the troops and everybody got mad at other people kneeling instead of that?
Yeah. They didn't get any free gloves. Odell Beckham came to the commissary and I got to take a picture with him and my son. But
so what now? So what now? Is it going to slow down? Are we going to get more suspensions like by the end of the year or going into next season? Like, because there's obviously, you would think that with the NFL contracts not being guaranteed and deterrence, I'm gonna suspend you for the season or whatever the case. You would think that some people would get the message and be like, I got to get better at this or just not do it at all. But
I think what's going to happen is there's going to be probably more investigations. They're going to see how deep this well goes and just draw a new line. Like, hey, from this point on, we have a zero tolerance policy on these things. Because a lot of times it's a matter of what's the line? Can I, if I'm an NFL player, can I be in a fantasy football league that pays if it's on NFL.com? Is there a loophole? Not necessarily a loophole. Am I doing what I've been doing since college with my friends? I've been in the same fantasy football league with my friends since 2016. Now I'm still in the league. Am I violating the rules? So I think it might be a situation where they're going to do so many investigations that you can't just be suspending 6, 7, 8 players per team for this tiny infraction, this infraction, this infraction. I think it's going to be a situation where everyone's going to have to come to the table and say, these are the clear-cut rules. You can't do this. Because to me, I don't understand why, if he wasn't gambling on NFL games, why being at the facility is a negative when the owner gets a cut of the money that the gambling websites give to the league, because that's how they divvy the money up. The players get a little bit of the cut, the owners get a little bit. So why would the facility be off limits to gambling if you're not gambling on football? So like that gray area, like I said, they have some of the best lawyers in the world working for these large corporations like the NFL and Anheuser-Busch and all these people. So they have people drafting these contracts, these rules, and NFLPA should have a good, legal team. But when you break it down, if this guy's only betting like 20 to $50 per game, I imagine that there is a guy on every team in the NFL that's making that bet, if not multiple guys. So it just, for 20 and $50, it doesn't seem like he is trying to. I don't think he's doing anything to influence the game so that his $50 bet hits. If he was, like I said, if he was betting like 12 to 15,000, then I'm like, okay, maybe then you look further into, was he on special teams and intentionally hold a guy or jump off sides so that the other team got the ball back so that they kept the spread going, things like that. But if you're betting $50, you're not gonna jump off sides or not catch an interception just so you can win $75 and get your.
Yeah, I know it's not gambling related, but dang, I thought OJ Mayo and Tyreek Evans would have been back by now. But as far as the gambling goes, with the college sports, I don't know how you rid it outside. Like, what do you do? Do you just take somebody's scholarship? Do you just kick them out of school? Like,
See, with the college gambling, like notoriously, there's a couple of documentaries on Netflix that you can watch.
mhm.
They had the Arizona State player.
Arizona State, uh-huh.
He was point shaving.
And I think there was
Uh,
one with Boston College in the late 80s, early 90s.
yeah, you had another guy that was like, I think he was on like heroin. I watched a 30 for 30 about him. I think he might have been like in some people for money, and he would do a couple things here and there. Uh, then you have Tim Donaghy, which for some reason he was the only referee that I'm like, that just seems unlikely.
Why do I know Scott Foster's record when certain players and teams play?
Why was Scott Foster on the phone with Tim Donaghy after every single game that Tim Donaghy was reffing where he was getting paid? Phone
Oh,
records. Yeah, they talked about it, phone record. And then now you affix that to Scott Foster's somewhat notorious kind of persona, mainly with the Chris Paul. But then you have the referee that's being investigated for his Boston Celtics
his
affiliation
burner account. Yeah.
and his burner account. So
Yeah. Didn't even get to ref the finals.
I mean, then you have that little video clip of when Jimmy Butler hit the layup, and then the guy off in the distance was like,
Yeah. He was like,
he was like,
damn.
yeah. So I mean, so it's weird. So with college players, it's difficult because you don't know where that money's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I watched a couple of like a episode of Vice, and they had a guy who lives in Vegas, and he was a professional gambler.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't talking about anything illegal, but he was like, a lot of people don't. He was betting on hockey games, like that was his thing. He was like, a lot of people don't know hockey, and like he's like, even the odds makers in Vegas aren't really good at predicting hockey games because hockey is such a game of momentum. It's not always talent. It just simply could be
Mm-hmm.
momentum. You get a couple of power plays that go the wrong way, and now you got a couple of 6-on-4 opportunities where you know a team like Boston, who wins the most games in the history of the sport, they still lose in the first round. So he says, so the odds makers aren't really good at that. But when you have so many college football games, do you think that the Vegas odds makers are really looking at the Toledo versus Akron game and picking a proper point spread? Do they know the quarterback, or some team like North Texas versus Northern Arizona, like the spread 6 points? They're like, yeah, we don't know. But if you're you're in these environments, like you live near North Texas or you live near SMU, and it's like, yo, you guys are supposed to win by 10 today. No, win by 6. So Fordham or some random school covers the spread. So you'll have like college players that are involved, but the money that they're getting under the table from whomever, that's the part that's gonna be tough to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
And
don't
shout
think
out.
people come into NFL players with like, yo, throw this game for $50,000. Like, yo, my check is 32,000 every Tuesday, no matter what. So it's like after taxes, I'm already getting 30, 40,000 just standing on the bench. Like, I don't need you to give me 20,000 to go in there and hold someone. It's not beneficial. But if you're getting zero, and it's like, yo, let this punt get blocked because I'm betting
Mm-hmm.
$10,000 that the punt's gonna get blocked. Cool,
And,
let
and,
this
sh-
guy through.
and since you brought up hockey, shout out to the Vegas Knights with the 2-0 lead in the Stanley Cup Finals. Sounds like the Oakland A's got a little hiccup going on that we expect to get worked out. But
Yeah,
so
somebody's gonna get a mystery bag, a mystery briefcase. So get that squared away.
yeah, and I think that was the thing. So like I think that's the thing is that we haven't had a Raider yet, get implicated in any of this. We haven't had a player at UNLV get implicated in any of this. And I would imagine that that's why it took so long to get sports into Vegas is because people feared that this type of thing would happen with temptation and I mean, hell, paradise, right? You know that
Yo,
they were
it
going to do
is.
these.
Yo, it, it's happening. It
It's happening.
has to be happening.
I don't know how you stop it though.
It's because I mean I was talking about Vegas at work the other day, and I was telling them that like I have a friend out there that's the connect. They make a phone call. They know Julian that works at this club, and he can get us a bottle if we agree to buy another one. And all right, cool, we agree to that. And now you can look like a star.
Mm-hmm.
And all we needed was one person to know another person. And we had $1,000 to spend on bottle service, and we got a couple bottles VIP section right by the DJ. It was dope. Imagine if you are a star athlete, you're gonna meet that person, this other person. Now you're gonna meet the person that gets you free bottle service at Dre's, where Ti's performing at 2 a.m. We're gonna give you this section. That section, just having a section alone comes with a certain notoriety. Whatever your flavor is, as far as like your whoever you're attracted to, you'll attract that. So gambling, I mean, gambling is real, but I think they're gonna have to. Excuse me. Like I said, they'll figure out a way to. They'll look at all of it and they'll see how deep it goes, and they'll say, you know what, from here on out, don't do it because it could be bad.
From here on out, where's Dalvin Cook going to be? Because word on the street is Minnesota doesn't want to give him the 10.4 million, and he's a $14 million cap hit. You know, there was rumors that back in March, the Dolphins were interested in trying to trade for Dalvin Cook, and obviously that fell through. So, is Dalvin Cook's days numbered in Minnesota?
Probably. I think it's a collective of how we've created this narrative. Another word I know you love, that the running back isn't important and they're expendable, and it's so dismissive. It's to me, if I was a running back and I'm looking at the NFLPA, I'm like, yo, what are y'all doing? Like realistically, my safety and my security, they're just being dangled.
Yeah.
They when it's time when I do my job effectively and efficiently, Pro Bowl level, top running back level, 6, 7, 8 in the league in rushing yards every year. When it's time for me to get paid, or I ask for a pay raise of any kind of money, I'm immediately traded. Saquon Barkley didn't get a guaranteed just let's make a deal. Like he is the Giants. They probably sell more Saquon jerseys. Maybe Daniel Jones is coming on the come up, but they probably sell way more 26 jerseys. People come to see him play. He's one of the best young talents in the league, and they don't want to pay him. Austin Eckler has like probably top 3 or 4 touchdowns over the last like 3 or 4 years, and he basically threatened to he threatened I wanted to trade, and then he essentially caved for like $2 million in incentives. Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts got $250 million. Deshaun Watson got 220 something $1 million. Russell Wilson got 260. Josh Allen got 260. All these quarterbacks, all these people who rely on me as a running back. I'm speaking, as for the running backs, and like none of them are getting paid, and they're just being cast off. They're getting their contracts just essentially like null and void, just getting cut, and it's like you the NFLPA is gonna have to like say, you know what? Offensive linemen are getting paid. Defensive linemen are getting paid. Corners are getting paid. All these wide receivers are getting paid. Even safeties are getting big money. Outside linebackers, shut it down. They're getting paid. The only ones not getting paid are kickers, punters, and running backs. And the kickers and punters aren't putting their bodies on the line. And they're important, but they're not putting their bodies on the line and then being cast away like, oh, your leg's no good now when it's time to get paid. Whereas the running back is. And for Cook, just Just cut me. I think there should be a provision that, like, listen, you can write off the salary cap money if you're gonna cut a running back when they still have money on their contract. You got to pay them because you're literally hurting this man's body for this many years and then sending him away with no money that you put in the contract to give him. But now so you're like, I don't feel like it. So they're gonna have to put like a special running back provision. If I'm the NFLPA, I'm willing to. I won't say go on strike because I don't think it's, but I'm willing to not come to the table unless that is a guarantee.
But Minnesota gave Alexander Madison 6.5 million over 2 years. So that's your replacement. He's been the backup for a few seasons now. You got him on the cheap. So why invest the money in that position? Maybe Dalvin Cook has taken enough hits. I know he's had a few injuries throughout his career. Maybe it's just that time in their eyes. It's just that time. Like I said, there were trade rumors going on for quite some time. Miami was the closest team. I've seen a lot of outlets trying to, the Lakers thing. They're trying to push him to Dallas. So I was trying to think of where, like Dalvin Cook, if he does get released, where should he go? Because I mean, remember DeAndre Hopkins is still out there too, but where if Dalvin Cook does get released by Minnesota, Adam Schefter reported, I believe it was Saturday, that he's pretty much cut. It's just paperwork and all that kind of stuff like that waiting to happen. So if I turn on TV in September, where might I see Dalvin Cook?
Well, his brother plays in Buffalo, so that's realistic because his brother plays there. I can see that being the case. I'm not sure what their running back room looks like. I know last year they had Naeem Hines, they had Singletary, and they had, I believe, James Cook.
They traded Moss. They traded
Yeah,
Zach Moss to the
Zach
Colts.
Moss. So they didn't really run the ball much, like with deliberate handoffs to the
Peyton
running
Manning
back.
style.
Like just hey, like we're gonna run this stretch to the left, to right, so forth and so on. They didn't do a lot of that because they had Josh Allen running the ball a lot. I think Miami is probably a good thing. 'Cause a lot of professional athletes, NBA, NFL, maybe a little MLB, a lot of them live in Miami during the season, and I mean obviously the off season, but like even during the season, a lot of players who play in like Dallas, some of them even still live in Miami. That's why they have so many of those skyrise apartments because it's just they keep building them and athletes just keep filling them up. It's something about Miami, like Odell Beckham when the after the Giants game, they flew down a private jet for New Year's when they flew down to Miami to hang out with like Trey Songz and some other players. I mean, some other people.
Stay away from him.
Yeah, but it's like they were on a boat with like Timbs with the fur on the inside. Like
Yeah.
they were literally in New York
Remember that was a
clothes.
narrative, like they haven't won a playoff game since, or like they're
Yeah,
like 2-6.
they were like, oh my god. I'm like, they were off. They're 22-year-olds, 23, 24-year-old dudes, and they were off. And they had a private jet. They can go hang out with an R&B star on a boat in Miami for New Year's. It's a 4-hour flight to Miami from New York City. Like, calm down. Like, it's not like they went to like in
like Copenhagen or
Sweden.
something.
Yeah, like they're in Amsterdam for 3 days, and they took a private jet from New York to Miami. Like that's like a rotation. But I think Miami. I mean, it makes sense football wise. Um, I think it makes sense. I mean, if you're a running back and you want to save yourself, you have Waddle and Tyreek Hill out there running routes, so the defense has to respect it. You have an offensive innovator and Mike McDaniel probably get you the ball in space. Delvin Cook is one of those guys that was tough to bring down. You didn't really get a lot of good shots on him, and he's a big back. Shout out to Florida State. So I think he wants to go probably somewhere in Florida. I definitely wouldn't mind getting out of Minnesota. I just don't know. I don't know in recent years. I can't think of the top of my head of a running back leaving one team and getting anywhere near the money that was essentially taken off the table because he got cut with the new team. Like I don't know if he goes to Miami and gets 24 million over the next 2 years or even 24 million over the next 3 years.
I
I don't
highly
know if he
doubt
gets
it.
that deal. If he can get a deal like that, that'd be great. But like I said, Saquon Barkley was up for his money. He got franchise, and his franchise tag, like I said, is the top or the average of the top three at your position, and he's getting like 10 million.
Well, I mean, Minnesota trying to, I guess, rebuild is probably the worst kept secret in the league, because there were the rumors about Kirk Cousins for Trey Lance. Now you got this. So Minnesota's obviously looking to go in a different direction anyway. And, you know, um, I think I got my eyes on New Orleans, depending on what happens with Alvin Kamara. There's the assault charges from Vegas that still need to be worked out. Is he going to get suspended? Is he going to go to jail? I mean, I doubt he goes to jail, but you have to consider all options. Uh, Tampa Bay, maybe. And no, I'm not picking on the Falcons. But
You're
they
not
got
worried about them.
Chase Edmonds and Rashard White are their running backs, so maybe that's a good look from
But do you want to go from a team that cut you to start a rebuild to go to a team that's rebuilding when
no,
you have options?
No, but at this stage, going off of everything you said, I'm probably going where the most money is. Who's willing to pay the money? Because remember, like the NFL, they
Tampa
say
Bay doesn't run the ball though.
the average NFL career is just over 3 years. So he's already been
Above that.
successful as far as that goes. So now this is probably his last chance at a I don't want to say significant, but this is his last chance to get the biggest payday possible for him.
Yeah, the big paydays he's probably going to get, like realistically, it might be 2 years, 14 million.
Yeah,
It'll
the
be
Chargers,
15 million. They got Eckler, and
they don't
really run. They don't really run the ball. Like Eckler only had
they got a
about
new
115
offensive
yards
coordinator
rushing.
now. They got a new offensive coordinator now.
Yeah,
So
but Kellen Moore isn't really. Think about Give me the play package for Dallas that made you think like, wow, this team's really maximizing their offensive talent. Like I said, we talked about gambling. I had a parlay. It was a 4-leg parlay, simple parlay. I needed Zeke to get 11, essentially 12
I
yards
remember
receiving.
this. Yeah,
He got 2. I think he got. Did he get 9 yards? I think he had like two catches, like 9
it fell
yards.
just short. Yep.
But this is with Cooper Rush at QB. So you mean to tell me you don't have a progression of where literally you just, hey, if this isn't there, this isn't there, just check it down to the running back. Like they don't have that. So Kellen Moore, with the same, essentially, you can say the talent level in Dallas as far as your skill positions with Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, Dak,
Hey, don't forget Brandon Cooks
Pollard.
now.
No. I'm talking about last year.
Oh, you're talking about last year. Okay.
Compared to what what they're gonna have in Los Angeles this year is about the same. And his offensive scheme was just blah. So I don't. Yes, Zeke got like 12 touchdowns. In that two. The Austin Eckler, Dalvin Cook thing could be Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott. But the reason Zeke got those touchdowns is because Jerry was paying Zeke a bunch of money, and Pollard would get him down to the 5, and then Zeke would just run 3 times for a yard and a half, or his 2-yard average, and then he would just get in the end zone on 3rd down.
Yeah, he's still not signed yet, by the way.
He won't get signed
at all.
He won't get
like wait for injury season.
Injury season, but even with the injuries, it's like I can go get, like you said, if Dalvin Cook ends up in Tampa Bay and you have an injury in Houston, you can go get one of those third-string guys from Tampa Bay that's been working out with the team since March. That's been getting nutrition, had he had weight mandates, he had
Yeah.
workout
Trying to
mandates,
make a name for themselves.
and they've been working hard versus
Yeah.
a guy who's sitting at home. When if you look at was it 32 NFL teams, we're gonna go with 4 to 5 running backs per team. That's 150 dudes at least, minus the starters. That gives me 115, 120 guys that are on a team right now, actively working out. I don't need to call Zeke,
And it
who's
looks
working
like
out maybe with a trainer on a beach in LA.
Joe Mixon is going to stay in Cincinnati after all.
Because like like I said, these running backs, they are being disrespected, but they don't just grow on trees. It's not like you can just make a some people are special. Like these guys are NFL running backs. The narrative that you can just go pluck another guy off the street and he can get you what Derrick Henry got you. Like like that doesn't make any sense.
It's all Mike
Or
Shanahan's fault. Orlandis Gary and then
oh
CJ
yeah,
Anderson.
CJ Anderson.
You
I mean,
know,
but Priest Holmes ran for a bunch of yards. Jamal Anderson for the Falcons, ran us to the Super Bowl. Uh, the Bulls and Baltimore used to run for a lot of yards. Yeah, Denver did, set the standard with that zone running scheme. But now the linebackers flow side to side the same way. So that's why you have a lot of teams looking for mobile quarterbacks to add that extra element so they can
mm-hmm.
get the running back open, because you can't just keep giving the ball to McCaffrey with like a
Right,
statue back there. Like Peyton Manning back there is not a threat to run. So
right, right.
I'm glad I won't load the box because he can pass, but I don't have anyone spying Peyton Manning at
Mm-hmm.
all. I mean, Grant, he has a
Yeah,
couple of touchdowns in his career because of it, the play action against Dallas, but it's not common.
yeah. And as far as Dallas, I can't see Dallas doing it. I know that's the team that everybody that I've been seeing in all these articles. That's the team that everybody's been kind of pushing the Dalvin Cook thing too. But I think that's just more of a want Dallas to,
Because people want to
you know,
talk about Dallas.
right,
It's the same
exactly.
thing about in the NBA. Everybody trying to like I saw something in the group. It had like 5 elite point guards talking about which one would fit best on the Lakers. I'm like, how about those 5 dudes are on other teams?
Yeah.
Like,
How about Trey Young to San Antonio? How about that?
hey, crazier things that have happened. But
but
yeah,
but
like I
yeah,
said, with Cook, I mean, you can maybe I don't know. I don't think Saquon signed his tender yet. I don't know if he signed his franchise tag paperwork yet. So maybe if he wants to, come to the Big Apple and play some football. Granted, the stadium, I know the stadium's in Jersey, but it's still the New York Giants. Uh, but I don't know who is gonna pay. I don't know what if he can hold out for the
or
price
what? Yeah,
point that
what's
he was
his market?
expected he can get. I
Right,
don't know if he can say, "Hey, I want 12 million a year," considering that the team is gonna cut him and
especially
go
with
with the
his,
his backup for 6 million.
yeah, especially with his injury history.
Yeah, just so, especially he has like soft tissue injuries, a lot of hamstring and stuff like that,
You
and
and
he
this
runs
soft
hard.
tissue.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I heard it.
I swear we could make a mix off of you saying soft tissue.
I don't know why I don't know why I've said it this much, but like I said, I don't really. I think when you get into sports and you're talking this way, it's like you hear these words, some of these key words, and you just as he's just like a tasty cake. That's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think that he would be a good pickup for people, but like I said, I just don't know what the market is right now because with the devaluation of the running backs, I mean, even the name is escaping me right now. Philly's running back, Miles Sanders. Even with what he contributed to Philly's offense just as a threat, he still didn't necessarily break the bank when he went to Carolina. And
That's what like. They're gonna the NFLPA realistically is gonna have to sit down and come up with a provision of like a minimum wage line for running backs after it's like because the league is using the number, they're using the I think it's 300 touches or 400 touches. Like if a running back has 400 touches or 400 carry 300 like 300 carries or something like that in the season, the following season there's a drop off.
Uh-huh.
So if he has a 300 carry season and then the next season, like every player, you're going to get injured. So he misses a couple of games and then he's up for a contract. They use that line like, oh well, you had DeMarco Murray. Remember he had
Yeah.
that big
The
year,
big
1,800
year, yeah.
yards, and then they were like, but he had like 399 touches,
Alfred
so
Morris.
too many touches, and they're
And
like,
remember
like
when
you gave me the ball.
Remember when Herm Edwards tried to kill Larry Johnson?
Oh, when he just kept giving him the ball?
Yeah, just kept giving him the ball. Like, you know what I mean? This dude, like, because running backs already take a lot of punishment because, you know, they block as well, you know, on top of the rushing and catching, you know, so they get brutalized, you know.
They get hit every play, and then everyone that hits them can land on them every single play.
And they're not protected like the quarterback.
And they're running through defensive tackle. So you got the defensive tackle and the linebacker hitting you after you ran 6 or 7 yards. And then they both land on top of you.
Right.
And you got to get back up and do it again.
Hey, man, ain't nothing wrong with a little butterscotch crimpet. Like, I like the strawberry ones myself, but, you know, nothing's wrong with a butterscotch crimpet.
Yeah, I'm telling you that. Yeah, my dad mailed me some of those when I was in Iraq because our chief was from Philly.
Yeah.
I gave him a box. Yo, we could do no wrong for 5 whole months.
Yes.
We could sleep. We could do whatever. I gave him
I'm about
that
to get
box.
on Google after this show.
He hugged the box like this. He was like, "Oh, I haven't seen these in so long," because he was stationed in Spain Island. So he's stationed in Germany. So yeah, I'm like, Chief, I got something for you.
All right, so you ready?
Yeah.
So this is what I promised you I was going to tell you. I was going to hold out. You know, saying I don't want to wait no more.
Let's hear.
All right, so this is from Brett McMurphy. You know, excellent, and I mean excellent college football pundit. He got this note from Scott Dortcherman. So in college football this season, the teams that are going to play at least 10 Power 5 opponents, so 12-game season. So there are teams that are going to play at least 10 Power 5 opponents. So obviously that includes your conference and everything as well. So the Big Ten has 14 teams. 13 of them are going to play at least 10 Power 5 schools. The Big 12 has 14 schools. 11 of those teams are going to play at least 10 Power 5 schools. The ACC, 10 out of 15. And then you have the Southeastern Conference, 2 out of 14. And that be Florida and South Carolina. Those are the 2 out of the 14 of the SEC. So I say that to say the SEC had their meetings last week. And hold
on. Let's chew on that for a minute.
Okay.
So you said the Big 12, 11 of their teams are going to play 10 Power 5 schools.
Yes.
So that includes their own conference and their non-conference games.
Yes.
And the SEC only has 2 teams.
2, yes. The Big Ten has 13.
Including the 8 teams that they're playing from their own conference.
Yes.
They're not playing 12 of the teams are not playing 2 other Power 5 teams at all.
Yep. And the argument is we're the best and the SEC is the ultimate grind and meat grinder. So why should we? Which it makes sense, you know, to some degree. But at the same time, like, do something for the fans, man. Bring Notre Dame in there or something. Or you ain't even got to bring anybody like Michigan or somebody like, you know, I saw Tennessee's playing Virginia, for example. You know, like Alabama has both Middle Tennessee State and Chattanooga. Like Tennessee beat them last year. They're so upset about it. They're going to pick on the whole state. You know, like,
and we're going to beat your homies up.
Yeah, we're going to beat your homies up, your little brothers up. So here's this real quick as well. So this is week 1 of the college football season, you know, SEC style. So Missouri, South Dakota, Kentucky, Ball State, Ole Miss, Mercer, Auburn, UMass, Arkansas, Western Carolina, Mississippi State, Southeast Louisiana, Georgia, UT Martin, Texas A&M, New Mexico, Vanderbilt, Alabama A&M, Alabama, Middle Tennessee State. And then you got North Carolina and South Carolina hooking it up. But then you got my guys, you know, rematch, Seminoles against LSU, so like props to LSU. But then real quick, before rivalry week, we know that the SEC, you know, gets into their cupcake bag and gets some ho-hos before rivalry week. So Arkansas, this is November 18th. Arkansas, FIU, Auburn, New Mexico State, Ole Miss, Louisiana Monroe, Alabama, Chattanooga, Texas A&M, Abilene Christian. So I say that to say you're the best. And to be the man, woo, you got to beat the man. But at the same time, it's kind of like, why you don't want to give us the games? Like, why you don't want to go have a home and home with Ohio State? Now, props to Alabama. They're not playing 10 Power 5 teams, but they are going, or they went to Texas this past season, and they got Texas coming into Tuscaloosa this year. So they are at least doing that. And I'm not saying that your schedule has to include Texas and USC. But you can play Washington State versus playing Chattanooga. You could play Northwestern versus playing Middle Tennessee State.
I hear you. And like we talked about this in our pre-meeting, Mike is a fan of sport. He's not just somebody who talks it because he just likes to talk about sports. Like Mike is a legit fan. We've been having this conversation for years about the non-conference games. He has the crazy stat with Florida having playing a non-conference
They haven't played
game.
a non-conference game outside of the state of Florida besides a neutral site. So a true road game since 1991 when they lost to Syracuse. Now, granted, that's going to end this year because they're going to Salt Lake City. So that's going to end this year. But that's 32 years that they got away with this.
Like they didn't go to Iowa State and play a non-conference road game or something along those lines.
And all the bowl games are basically home games for the better teams as well. Sugar Bowl in Louisiana, or I'm sorry, in Louisiana. Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl down in Atlanta. You got the Outback, Capital One, all that stuff down in Florida. So you're the best. Nobody's disputing that. But having all these games in these situations, I mean, I don't know what would happen if you played Ohio State in Chicago. Like the playoff game this year, Ohio State and Georgia was in Atlanta. But in the SEC, so the reason that this came up is because the SEC was trying to decide between playing 8 conference games or 9 conference games, because the SEC and the ACC are the only 2 Power 5 conferences that play 8 games versus 9. So the SEC has Oklahoma and Texas coming in next year. So they agreed that this season they'll stay at 8, and then we'll see what happens in the future.
Okay, so when you hear something like "we'll see," it's normally predicated on something they're projecting that could potentially hurt their case or bolster their case. So this is a part where I come through with the other information. See, Mike comes through as an angry fan because he wants the matchups. And I'm going to tell him why. He's like, well, get the matchup.
Oh, because I know why.
College football playoffs, just participating in the semifinal game, your school gets $6 million. So those four teams, they split $24 million. And then the college football playoffs in general, just those 4 teams, is like a $450 million to the NCAA to pay it out to those conferences.
Right.
Once they go to 12 teams, it's going to be a split of $1.9 billion. $1.9 billion, because you're going to, I don't know how they're going to break it down. I don't know if they're going to go 1 through 12. I don't know if 1 through 4 is going to get a bye. But you're going to get
1 through 4 is going to get a bye, yes.
So then that gives you 5 and 12, 6 and 11.
Just like the NCAA tournament, yep.
Yeah, so that's going to give you multiple games, and those games are going to be at home stadiums, like the home field advantage.
Right,
so Michigan at the Big House if they're 5, and they're playing Tennessee at 12. And then you keep in mind, if you have 2 or 3 SEC schools in which I'm projecting you're going to have 3 in probably every year.
Mm-hmm.
You can go ahead and scratch off 3 spots for
and then they're going to win the national titles again, and everybody's going to say, see, told you.
And that's what's going to happen. Like I can the SEC in the conversation I had with you was like, I like the Air Force stories. you meet a lot of people from a lot of different parts of the country.
Uh-huh.
So you meet people from Baltimore, you meet people from Dallas, you meet people from Florida, and people are from these tough cities. You know, guys from
Mhm.
Brooklyn, guys are from LA, and they show up to Air Force functions or whatever, and they have this reputation like, "Oh, I'm from here, I'm tough."
Mhm.
Until you test them, and then you find out, no, you're just from LA. You're no more tough than the dude from Iowa that slapped you at the bar in front of your girl. And sometimes that happens to the SEC. Like they'll go all year and they'll play their 8 games, and then you'll have the creme de la creme. LSU with Joe Burrow's team, no doubt about it. They could beat anybody in America. Georgia for the last couple of years. If that, I mean, granted, if the kick is online, then they lose Ohio State. But Ohio State had NFL players all across offense, the number 2 overall pick, and then a projected number 2 overall pick at wide receiver that got injured. So they just had talent all across the board. So lose Ohio State potentially beating Georgia is not that big a deal. But
Right,
then you'll
right.
get a game like Auburn loses to Oregon. You'll get a game Mississippi State loses a bowl game or something to, you know, Washington State. Just like those games also happen. We only see Alabama just constantly going 11-1 or 10-2 or 12-0 or 13-0. Depends if they play in the SEC
Mhm.
championship game or not. So we see those outcomes, and it's normally your top 2 teams, your Alabama, Georgia, they're 1-2, and then LSU maybe skyrockets in there, or LSU's the number 1 team, and then it's Alabama, Georgia. But
Mhm.
that's pretty much your change off. Those 3 teams are interchangeable, and every few years you get a run where Cam Newton and Auburn, they are the number 1 team in the SEC. But for the most part, you're going to get a bunch of LSU, Alabama, Georgia, and then everybody else is kind of like riding the success coattails of those 3 programs.
Right. And that's
And
why
and that, I think that's part of the reason why they don't play those games early because
even in their conference though, like so we've been the SEC has been fortunate that Alabama and Georgia have been on this collision course, because they haven't played in the regular season against each other since 2015. And and before that it was back in like 2009. You got A&M who got in the conference in 2012. They played Georgia one time. It's 2023 now. They never even went to Georgia. Georgia came to College Station. A&M never went to Athens. So like you got this. So that's why I wanted 9 games, was to see, even with, because the SEC fans, they say we play in the toughest conference every year, and I'm like, yeah, because not trying to take away from Georgia, but they're in a division with Vanderbilt, Kentucky, South Carolina, who's good, once every 5 years or something along
sporadically.
those lines.
And
Yeah, like
most of the teams are good sporadically,
yeah,
but for the most part, they are the top the top 2, like this argument we had before, the top 2 or 3 SEC schools are among
the
the
best.
top
Yes.
12 in the country, no
Well,
matter how
just like
you
just like just
you
like
shift it up.
everybody banged on Cincinnati because Alabama beat them in the playoff game 27-6. It was probably worse than that, but
Yeah.
Alabama ran the ball a lot, because they could. And they said, "See, I told you Cincinnati didn't belong." But in the same season, they beat Mississippi State 49-9. You know what I mean? So like, don't sit up here and tell me that you're running through murderers row because you played Arkansas and then you played 5-7 Auburn the next week.
See, what happens is, like you and I think we had this conversation at the beginning of last year. We talked about, because we were talking about how they're going to get, because we were talking about when they announced that they're going to go to 12 teams. And this is something that they did when Cincinnati made it, when the Cincinnati went undefeated and they ended up in there. So this is a conversation we had maybe like before last season. They will have Mississippi State at 6-2. They'll have them at 16. But Houston at 7-1, they'll have at 23. So when Cincinnati has to play Houston, it's like, oh, Cincinnati beat a team that was ranked 23,
And then they
but
fell
when
out.
and then now they're out of the top 25. But when Alabama beats Mississippi State, but it's a close game. They'll go from 16 to like 22. So Alabama will have this many wins over ranked teams because then the following week, Mississippi State will also play Georgia.
Yeah, and
So
then they
now
do the
Georgia
whole,
gets a Mississippi State team that's 6-3 that just got beat badly the week before by Alabama,
and it's a
and
ranked win.
then they'll get a ranked win. Meanwhile, Houston at 7-2 isn't ranked. So now Cincinnati only has, they beat them when they were ranked, but then Houston can't get back in the top 25 or they
Right.
can't get
And
above
that's what they
20.
do. And that's what the SEC does. They say they were ranked at the time that we played them, but you're not factoring in that one of those wins was against UT Martin. One of those wins was against, Vanderbilt. One of those wins was against Middle Tennessee. And then they were 5-0. So yeah, they beat Auburn here, and then they beat South Carolina. So therefore, they're a good team.
Yeah, but like I said, you'll play Mercer, then you'll play because like Auburn's constantly changing our coaches, firing coaches. They don't get the top recruits. They're losing their quarterbacks. They bring in another quarterback. So like all these teams are struggling to keep their talent, keep their coaches.
Yeah.
And so then you get a big time coach like Brian Kelly to come to LSU, and now they want LSU to be good. So the preseason ranking is going to be based off their recruiting class or the transfer portal. So that gets them a 6 or something like that. Alabama's always going to be 1, 2, or 3. Georgia's going to be 1, 2, or 3. So they all start off the year. Auburn to be 12, Mississippi State to be 16. They'll put like 5 or 6 or 7 SEC schools in the top 25. Not top 25 talent, but every single year they're always loaded. And if you put Florida at 8 based off the transfer portal and they play their first game against Utah, or they play the game against Utah and they lose, Utah's probably not going to be ranked higher than 16, maybe 14 coming. Maybe you get Utah at 10, and you got Florida at 8. So Utah beats Florida. Florida will go from 8 to 12, and then they'll get their cupcake run, and then they'll
Back
move
up
up.
to 7. Yeah.
Every time a Big Ten team loses, they'll fall out of the top 10. Florida moves up 2 spots. Cincinnati wins, but it's like, Cincinnati beat Akron, but this impressive win over Vanderbilt, another tough SEC opponent, moves, Florida back up to 6. Now they're already back up to 6. Especially if Utah stays on, if Utah goes on a run, now like, they got beat by a team that's ranked number 4 in the country,
And
and
that's
they'll
why.
move them up. And then as soon as Utah loses 2 games in a row, they just keep moving Florida up. They're like, they beat this team now, and they'll just use
Then they'll say it was the first game of the season and they were trying to figure it out, or if it's a bowl game, they didn't want to be there.
Quarterback to the NFL draft, and this guy's gonna get him, blah blah blah, and like, or LSU, Brian Kelly is a great coach. He's gonna get him on track, and then they'll get like a little win over Tennessee, who doesn't have their starting quarterback,
Yeah,
but
so
then
that's
gonna upset. So it's like,
so that's why like with the playoff. So that's why with the playoff, the money is big, and the SEC is going to get the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Like if you're choosing between a 10-2 or a 9-3 SEC team and a 9-3 somebody else, 9 out of 10, you're going to put the SEC team in, and it becomes the SEC Invitational.
The only way if Colorado's 9-3 and Ole Miss is 9-3, maybe I would say they get Colorado in because Dion is marketable. You can sell that game.
Maybe, yeah.
But Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, marketable. So you can sell. So it's a lot of people are just kind of a lot of the SEC schools are riding the coattails of their upper echelon talent.
Right.
Because if you think about Texas A&M, they had 3rd or 4th ranked recruiting class. At Nick Saban talking about he bought all their players, and then they just completely fall off the map one year. And I think they had a terrible record last year.
Yeah,
they're going to make a turnaround because everyone likes Jimbo Fisher. But they're going to be justifications, rational. Like even with the NFL draft, we talk about it. One guy maybe undersized, but he played here, and if you can play here, you can make it anywhere. But if another guy who is 6'5", 265, but it doesn't look like that on tape. It's just a matter of like what do you want to justify? Do you want to justify the tape? Or do you want to justify the potential?
Mm-hmm.
Is with the SEC, it's it's the history almost completely dictating the future of how everything is raked out. And then
So why
you
can't
have
the ACC be good?
because they don't have a team, they don't have one or two teams that can consistently compete with the Big Ten has Michigan, Ohio State. They're going to be good. They get most of if there's 35 stars in the Big Ten, Michigan gets 8, Ohio State gets 10, and then the other teams get to divvy up the remaining 12. Uh, if Virginia Tech and North Carolina were good every year, or Clemson got back to it, but Clemson also needs another ACC school to be good. You need in the Big 12, you needed Texas and Oklahoma to be good. You need to be top. You need USC, maybe Oregon, or USC, Utah. You need a couple of teams that consistently every year are at the top of the conference and the country. SEC has that. They have LSU, Georgia, Alabama. They are the best teams in that conference without a doubt. And then that as you take them to the gladiator rounds, they are those 2 or 3 teams are the among the better teams in the country.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the ACC just can't. They need Miami needs like they need a juggernaut to they need a phoenix to rise from the ashes.
Mm-hmm.
Because other than that, once we like I said, when we get to these 12 teams, if they don't put a cap on how many, if there's no cap, you're gonna have. I mean, if we could pull up the records right now of the SEC schools, you would have had you would have had Georgia,
Let's see.
Alabama, Tennessee,
Tennessee. Uh-huh. Yeah,
and
so Georgia was 15. They finished 15-0. So regular season they were 12-0, then won the SEC title game. Tennessee was 10-2. And then in the West, Bama was 10-2, but they didn't go to the SEC title game because they lost to LSU head to head. And then LSU finished 10-3 before they lost to or 10-2, and then they lost to Georgia.
yeah. So all 4 of those teams would have been in your 12
Mm-hmm.
because the Alabama argument, because Alabama, like Nick Saban, pretty was on TV saying
Mm-hmm.
we lost on last second plays in 2 games
Twice. Mm-hmm.
twice. So we lost. So that gets him in with 12. He almost still got in with 4. So he's there. Alabama's definitely in with 12 teams. LSU at 10-2, they're in. Obviously, Georgia's in and Tennessee's in. So that's 4 spots.
Right, right, right.
Because
And
maybe you
then
get Utah in because they won the Pac-12.
yeah,
You
and
get
then
USC.
Michigan and Ohio State would have got in.
So that's 8. So we had Michigan, Ohio State, Utah, USC, and 4 SEC schools. So we're already at 8.
Then you got your Power Five. I mean, I'm sorry, your G5. So like your best G5 champion. That's probably
Yeah,
always going to be
but
11 or 12.
they have to have 11 or 12 wins and
Right,
1 loss. Like they
right.
have double digit wins, 1 loss. 11-2 maybe, or something in 1. Like they definitely can't have 3 losses. But, so soon I think that's part of the 8 is like cuz we're going to get if we get 4 schools in, we're going to get 20 like hold on 33% of that $1.9 billion coming to the SEC.
Yep, yep. And so like I said, you got those 4. You got Ohio State, Michigan. You got some one of Clemson, Florida State.
Yeah,
So that
one
gets
off.
that gets you to 7. You got your G5 gets you to 8. You got Utah that won the Pac-12, so that gets you
So
to
they
8.
won the Pac-12, but they beat USC twice. But
Yep.
USC has the top ranked player in the upcoming draft, so he's in. Coupled with USC has the coach and Lincoln Riley.
You would have had K-State as the Big 12 champion. You probably still would have got TCU in last year.
TCU in.
But the Big 12 probably won't get 2 teams in consistently. And then you got another wild card spot that maybe last year it would have went to Penn State because they had the 2 losses that were only to Michigan or Ohio State.
Yeah. So it's gonna be, the Power Five is gonna get, granted they're gonna fill it out. It's gonna be, like I said, 4 SEC schools, 3 Big Ten, couple of Pac-12. But the Pac-12, it'd have to be a situation where the lesser team beat the top team, like Utah beating
Right.
USC, and you can't put USC in to the 12 if Utah beat them
Twice.
twice, but you want USC in because they're gonna travel, and
Yeah,
you
they're the
got to get
brand.
Utah in because they're the Pac-12 champion.
Right.
So it's gonna be so many
Yeah, because
layers
last
to
year
how
was
they do it.
weird. Last year was weird. You had Utah, Oregon, USC, and Washington like gobbled up trying to get into that Pac-12 title game. And Washington would have got in if they had probably lost to anybody other than losing to Arizona.
Yeah,
We
and then they went away from the North and South champion because I think they were trying to
they're divisionless. Yeah.
because they were trying to get USC
Mm-hmm.
into the college football playoff.
Yeah, so that's the wave of the future now. Divisions are going to go away. Just about every Power Five conference. I know the Big Ten is experimenting with it. I think the SEC is keeping it for this year, but then going forward, they won't have it. The
You
ACC
already
won't
have the
have it.
conference. Like you already have the conference. Just play it out. You already have it. It's like there's no need to add more nuance because what happens is you'll get a championship game where I remember growing up as a Virginia Tech fan, and I used to work with a Florida State fan, and you probably know which game I'm going to talk about. When we had Marcus Vick,
Mm-hmm.
and they were primed to go to the Orange Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
and Florida State came in at 7-5
Yeah.
and beat the 12-0 Virginia Tech Hokies, and ended up going to this bowl game and losing and finished their season 8-6.
Yeah. Rest
But
in
they were in the
peace.
BCS bowl game.
Rest in peace, Bobby Bowden. But he killed Florida State with his son as the offensive coordinator.
Nepotism, man.
Yeah.
Nepotism. It just doesn't work.
But then he had the one son that went undefeated at Auburn. But he Auburn was on some kind of bowl ban, so they couldn't do anything.
I remember Urban Meyer and Ohio State were in the bowl ban, but
Yeah, speaking of which, I'm interested in that documentary, Swamp Kings. That should be pretty interesting.
come on, man.
You
You
know,
had some killers on there
Tim Tebow,
being led by a preacher.
Percy Harvin. So like after this documentary, saying like
Pouncey twins.
if Urban Meyer wanted a job, he probably ain't getting it after this documentary.
Or maybe they're gonna be like, man, you dealt with all that. You are the perfect man to run our organization.
Maybe. But ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of show where something happened in the sports world that me and Raph need to address. Like, so, coming into the show, I didn't have anything until like literally right before I hit the record button.
What you got?
All right. So, Ed O'Bannon, many, many, many years ago, found himself in Coach K basketball and threw a fit because he didn't get paid for it. I understand it. Capitalism. I'm with it. You're using my likeness. pay me. So then that caused us to lose out on NCAA football. Last one came out in 2013. So we're 10 years post NCAA 13. And the basketball game, the 2K game, 2K8 was the last one. Best basketball video game ever. And then March Madness, aka NCAA basketball, stopped after 2010. So that was Ed O'Bannon that did that to us. You know what I mean? But okay,
rightfully so.
rightfully so. But I still, it is what it is. So now, next year, fast forward, we got EA Sports working on another college football game to end the drought. So then, talking to On 3 Sports, General Booty, quarterback at Oklahoma,
That's the
mentioned.
worst name.
Hey, I know John David Booty was much better, but
Yeah.
he went on and talked about how players might hold out because if they're trying to pay all the players $200 for their likeness, that's not good enough. So there's a chance that his team were having conversations about should we hold out if that's what happens. And then Jalen Daniels from Kansas jumped in and said, like, I agree with that because, if you're somebody like a USC fan, you buying that game to play with Caleb Williams. You're not buying that game to play with number 3 or number 5 or whatever. Like you don't want because they'll probably just have his number, his height, his weight, but it didn't be a white dude or something like that. So he don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want authenticity and integrity because those are the principles that I try to live by. So I say that to say NIL is a thing now. So you're already being paid for your name, image, and like this. And we talked about the hypocrisy where people like Dabo Sweeney are out here banging on the players because they're getting paid now. Some coaches have stepped down. Like I said, Roy Williams and Jay Wright from Villanova maybe stepped down because they don't want to coach in this era of college basketball while NIL exists. All I'm saying is, dudes, don't hold out over a video game. Hold out because your teammate broke his leg and they took his scholarship. Hold out because they didn't let you unionize. Let the fans have our video game back. And I know that's selfish of me. But I am who I am, baby. I just had to get that off my chest because I want my college football. They already delayed it a year. It was supposed to come out this year, like next month.
It was mad fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I liked it better than Madden, so now, it got delayed until next year. Just give me what I want.
I used to play. I created a player, played with Utah, and I was like Heisman Trophy quarterback every year, and it was simulate. And I played when like he was on the field, and at the end of the year, Utah would be 3 and wouldn't play for the national championship.
Yeah, that
Even
was
on
one
a
of the
video
best.
game, even on the video game, I would play outstanding football, undefeated football and I was like, I played this mode with, like I was build up my player. Never got a national championship shot. Won the Heisman, won all the awards, had the trophy case full.
Well, we got the mods
Never.
now. We got the mods now, so you can get the 14 playoff and everything. But yeah, just give me my game back, because I miss it. I miss it. But the floor is yours.
Well, like I mean, like for me, I really haven't gotten, I really have much. The only thing I did see, because we talked about the show Undisputed, kind of, the fallout and the buyout and everything else, and we try to run down a list of people we thought were going to be good viable candidates, and we pretty much said no to anything. But then I saw an article that Lesean McCoy was coming out as a potential replacement, and for me, I don't like it because it just makes it takes away from what you're supposed to do on your show. Your show is supposed to talk about sports and give proper analysis of sports. And really all they do is just scream about hypothetical stuff. It's like I've watched, watched Lesean McCoy. He's been on different podcasts. I like his personality. I think people rock with him, but I haven't heard him give like real sports analysis. So it'll just be him and Skip just sitting across from each other, yelling random stuff. And coupled with the fact that Shannon is leaving because Skip has complete control, is like, McCoy, Shady, what are you doing? Like, what do you think you're gonna get the same rise as Shannon? I don't know if your personality, like, it takes a lot to like have that kind of impact on people to the point where people want to watch you when they have a plethora of options. Like, there's so many options for sports or just TV in general. For you to be good enough for Shannon to have his podcast and everything that he goes on other people's podcasts, like, all the smoke and everything else. It just doesn't seem like a wise move unless it's just a money thing. Like, I don't know how much money he's getting on Speak, but if he's gonna get a pay raise, then yeah, go sit with Skip. Just know that your show isn't gonna get better if the same guy is calling all the shots. So you're literally just going from a show that you went from Speak for Yourself that's gone through multiple hosts and it's not gotten better. Every single time there's a new change, it doesn't get better. It loses an audience, a chunk of the audience every single time. Either come up with your own idea and run with that and let the money come to you, but stop chasing this money because that show is whack. Undisputed is whack. Speak, I can't watch. It's just they're just not good. They're not good shows.
Yo, and he
It's like
he
The View. Like, I'm not fronting, but I'm like, I'm not watching The View or The Dish or anything. It's like, what are y'all talking about? Like, why is it just four people up here just screaming back and forth?
and
Like,
he not
if,
even a
if, if
Hall of
there was two
Famer.
more people here and we're just yelling hypothetical stuff like, oh, you mean to tell me if you put LeBron James in 1996, the Bulls would still win 72 games? It's like, no, we can't argue that. Like, there's nothing we can do about that. Like, but that's the kind of stuff you're gonna have with Skip. Dallas Cowboy conversation. Tom Brady's retired and is a part owner of the Raiders, and they're gonna talk about him potentially coming out of the owner's box and suiting up for the Raiders because Jimmy Garoppolo foot. I'm like, okay, yeah, you can want that, but realistically, is he gonna do that? No. So talk about something that's gonna be real. Like, well, talk about the actual injury that Jimmy Garoppolo has. But instead, you're gonna talk about the same thing every single week. Jimmy Garoppolo goes 0-2 in Vegas. You're gonna talk about Tom Brady. The Cowboys go 1-2 in the first 3 weeks. Mike McCarthy, does he deserve to get fired? And that's what's going to be your whole conversation. And you're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes. Like, I don't really think he's done that much in the league because he's going to have the same talking points that he had last year. Nothing will be different. You're just going to waste your time. So say no to that and go join Mason Cameron and their podcast where you can talk reckless and be funny because that's good. At least that's authentic. But don't join Skip. It's a bad idea. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your money, but you're joining a show that literally will lose audience members.
Yeah, he better watch his mouth because he ain't even a Hall of Famer. You know what I'm saying? Skip already made it known he don't care about Shannon being a Hall of Famer. What are you going to do to Shady?
But Shady's gonna talk about how great Tom Brady was in that Super Bowl run, and that's gonna be enough. And he's gonna say something like Tom Brady, oh, the way Tom Brady commanded that Super Bowl, I can't put Patrick Mahomes above him, blah blah blah. And Skip's gonna love him, and it's gonna be this sad, boring love affair show with no tangible analysis. It's just
Yeah.
gonna be repugnant talking points that get
Taking,
regurgitated
taking pot shots at
day
Eric
after
the
day
enemy.
after day, taking shots at the enemy. I don't know. Maybe it's a perfect match, but it won't be good. And you can tag him in this. It won't be good. I'll book it. It won't be good.
For sure. But you know what is good is fellowshipping with my guy, Mr. Logical. I'm about to get up out of here, y'all, because as y'all can tell, I am not feeling the greatest. And mama done got some meatloaf going. So, you know what I'm saying? So before I take this Dama tap or some tussin, you know what I'm saying, I got to get this belly filled so I can get some rest. So Thanks for listening to us. Thank you for all the support. Like, subscribe, give us reviews, email us, all that good stuff. It's
1 star
free.
to 5 stars is all free.
We are here for you. This is your show. We're just merely the bodies that present the analysis. So, Mr. Logical, what you got? Send us off.
Listen, like I said, once again, reiterating the proper talking points. Thank everybody for listening. Like I said, man, you can hit us up anytime. We're trying to keep this movement going. I'll say 2 episodes a week. Just like I said, we appreciate everybody watching on YouTube, making your comments. People hitting me up directly, hitting us up directly, tagging us and stuff. It's all great. We appreciate all of it. We do it for the love of the conversation. So any talking points you guys have that you think we haven't covered, if we covered something too much and you want us to switch it up, let us know. Like, we're always on the search for topics.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I was sick today, but I did it for you.
And he toughed out 3 hours. So I said we had an hour pre-meeting. This is a process.
Yeah,
man.
I love y'all.
Hitting the mute button.
That's what a bebop, a Scooby Doo. Well, guess what? America, we love you.
We out.
Peace.